And we're here with Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's funny. We're recording this in the middle of the Patriots Day Red Sox game. They're killing the White Sox. Unbelievable.
Yes.
Red Sox team has made a full turnaround. Now it sucks though. The better the Red Sox do, the more justified the move is to keep them on NESN and move the Bruins to NESN Plus.
That is true. One of the challenges of pushing the season back a little bit is now we have multiple NESN Plus games. So even though at least when you're on NESN or NESN Plus, when they say puck drop is going to be at 7:05, it's going to be the case. Not like when it's on NBC and it's a noon puck drop, but then it actually doesn't start until like friggin' 12 like 35, I think it was. So not ideal when you go on those national games, to say the least.
Well, Ty put it best. Like, I think he tweeted, like, I forgot that this was a thing. That's on me. Like, that's 100% just on me for forgetting. Another thing you forget is because the Bruins and Red Sox didn't play at the same time in the spring last year, because obviously everything was shut down in April 2020. You forgot about the whole NESN Plus thing. Like, I totally forgot that was a thing. That's why the first time it happened this year, I was like, oh yeah, that used to be an issue we used to have. Yes. And now it's back. I guess it's one of those issues like traffic that as life gets back to normal, you get used to again. So I guess we'll take the issues over the issues of last year. But still nonetheless kind of weird to see the Bruins get pushed to NESN Plus, even though they outrate the Red Sox on many nights. So there's that. There is that.
Presented without comment.
But as the Red Sox continue to do better, so too do the Bruins. 4 wins in a row for them as of Monday. Big wins, too. These were not like small-time wins. You beat the Caps by a bunch. You beat the Islanders twice. Beat the Sabres and the Anders Bjork-led Sabres. So it's funny because, literally 8 days ago, now 9 for those listening on Tuesday, 9 days ago, this season looked like it was lost. 8-1 loss to the Capitals. Terrible decor. Everybody was hurt. And in the span of like a week, you acquire Taylor Hall, Mike Reilly, and Curtis Lazar in the span of like 30 minutes. And everything just flips on its head. This looks like a whole new team. Are we reacting? Is it overreacting to say this team now looks, and we've said this the whole time, they can get healthy. It's a cup contending lineup, but they legitimately the past week have looked like a team that could make a deep run. Is it overreacting to say that?
I don't think so, in terms of just looking at how they're equipped to say that this is a team that if they get healthy should beat everyone in the East. I think maybe the Islanders are your toughest out. I look at that Washington team and yeah, they've got a lot of offense, and if you play them in a playoff series, I think the Bruins can beat them. It would be unfortunate though, because you're probably going down at least 2 of your regulars because you're going to get the shit kicked out of you in that series. But you look at that team, though, like that decor is very slow. I think you can expose them there. As much as people want to say, I think the good and bad of giving up all those assets for Anthony Mantha, and granted, he scored, 4 goals in 4 games for them? That's great. Mm-hmm. Like, why don't you go get a goalie? I still can't believe they, obviously panicked and called up Yzerman and get that deal, but I don't know how you don't get another goalie to shore up that when you look at kind of just the state of that team. But even if you want to weigh it against the Islanders and whether the Bruins have a chance to beat them, I think you have to be encouraged by what you've seen lately from this team. And I think the way I try to, assess this team and look at it through a lens is I think you have to project what this team's going to look like 2-3 weeks down the road, right? Because as much as the Bruins are playing very well right now, you've got the Bergeron line doing its thing. You've got obviously the Krejci, Hall, Smith line being, they've been fantastic. As much as, they're not scoring, the new fourth line with Lazar has been very, very active. I think, Chris Wagner, after getting scratched, has played really good hockey over the last week or so. Goaltending situation looks great. But you look at this team, right? Are they even remotely close to hitting, their ceiling? And that's not to say that you need all of a sudden Charlie Coyle to be 2019 playoffs Charlie Coyle, right? But if you're getting just occasional offensive contributions from Coyle, DeBrusk, Ritchie, if David Pastrnak just starts finishing more of his chances, if you get just guys back healthy, if you get That power play, the fact that I think they've only scored 3 power play goals over the last 7 games, and I think all 3 of them are from Craig Smith. So you're not even getting power play goals from your usual guys. So you look at all those factors play into it, and again, it's not like you need those guys and all those factors to be pedal to the metal. Like the power play is at 33%. If you just regress back to the mean of what that team should be, I don't see how you can't be encouraged by what this team, how it's clicking right now, because they're beating very good teams decisively without having a lot of pieces still clicking right now, which I think is encouraging for the Bruins in terms of just building up their overall game.
And I guess what is scary about that, though, is in past seasons, that's also been the case where that secondary scoring has not performed as well. But again, now you have that Krejci line producing.
Yes.
Because again, for so many years, that Krejci line wasn't producing. Now it's funny. You put 2 competent wingers next to Krejci and it starts producing.
It's crazy.
Whoa. Who would have foreseen that coming? But I do think, you mentioned the Coyle line that's still been kind of, not really there, so to speak. And then, obviously the D need to come back, Brandon Carlo, Matt Grzelcyk, Kevin Miller, like when are you getting those guys back? But when you do against a team, if you go into the playoffs close to healthy, I mean, I don't see why they can't beat a team like Washington. Like, I think that's a pretty easy pick to maybe pick them over the Caps, in that first round. But again, you mentioned it perfectly. Who are you losing in that series? Are you going to lose Grzelcyk because Wilson dumps the puck in his corner and puts him through the glass? Are you going to lose, what's weird? And I don't want to put bad stuff out into the universe like this, but I don't want to say it because I know if it happens, I'll get killed for it. But it just has the writing on the wall. Maybe this is because it's like the Rick Nash syndrome from a few years ago, but it would just be so Capitals to be the team that like takes Taylor Hall out, right? Like I thought yesterday afternoon, I was like, there's definitely a chance that Taylor Hall is going to be coming over the middle, going for a shot, and like Garnet Hathaway comes through with like with just a fist or just hits them or something like crazy, or Tom Wilson, the same thing, because we've become so accustomed to it.
Well, I mean, how dare you, Evan, say such a thing like that? I know Tom Wilson was so incensed that even people were bringing up the argument, even though, I don't know, was that an incidental play with Reilly? Yeah, it was unfortunate. He was falling. What are you going to do? That's hockey. It's funny, though, how it always seems to happen to the same fucking guy, though, right? And
Crazy.
It's always, the fact that the guy can't get afforded any benefit of the doubt when it seems to be the same player every single time, or the same guy that cracked Brandon Carlo's head against the glass when he could have hit him right through the numbers. So
that is just a crazy coincidence, Connor. What are you doing with this?
It's funny how he's not getting the benefit of doubt, or we get upset when we can't lead with the fact that, hey, Tom Wilson's the guy who let off the hit. It's funny how it works out that way, of this guy who always seems to be the guy leading these hits that, he's getting singled out for it. So not surprising. And I think that's a very real situation, though, of you play Washington, you're going to get a few guys banged up. I mean, look at, after the game on Sunday, Bruce Cassidy's biggest gripe was that Ovechkin hit, which was high. And McAvoy got back to the bench and he was steaming, like justifiably so. Ovechkin then goes and complains to the refs on the other end of the ice when we should have been back checking on a Marchand goal. So that was kind of funny, but that's the Washington Capitals. That's what you go into that series expecting.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I tweeted the clip of the hit. I tweeted Tom Wilson hits Sean Kuraly right to the head. A fact. He hit him in the head. That is where his shoulder hit him, in his head. No penalty called on Wilson, which is fact, by the way. No penalty was called on Wilson. The only penalty coming out of that was Jared Tenorti for roughing, rightfully so. Tenorti did the right thing there. Like, I would be incensed if I'm Kuraly or if I'm Bruce Cassidy and see that no one on the ice, like, at least goes after Wilson. And luckily, Tenorti was on the ice for it. But Capitals Twitter got a hold of it. And was just, what? Delete this tweet. One woman was like, delete your account now. And it's like, what? You got like, honestly, probably be more peaceful to be like, way more peaceful life without Twitter. So maybe you're right. Maybe I should. But no, the Wilson stuff's incredible to me. It's not even I mean, it's so expected at this point. That's why it just continues on.
It's not even incredible. It's just, isn't it just such a coincidence? That's always the same guy.
It's crazy. Why
he
I don't know how that happens.
The benefit of the doubt.
And you got Garnet Hathaway, by the way, who looks like a Walmart Tom Wilson out there. Does the same shit. but he's just way less skilled and nowhere near as good.
Mm.
So you got that to deal with too. But yes, I mean, again, the Caps are big and slow. It's like you're in some ways, like you're playing the Blues from a few years ago. But at least the Blues were like somewhat skilled. And I guess the Capitals are too.
The Caps are skilled. They can score on offense, but I think you can expose them down the other end. I mean, how many times in that game yesterday was the front of the ice, grade A areas of the ice just open?
Oh yeah.
Like
no, absolutely.
if you're just moving your feet, which I think why getting a guy like Hall helps quite a bit. You can exploit that team, like that D-core, even guys that are very skilled playmakers like Carlson. If you start moving your feet, you can get them on the heels. It's again, you might be winning games 6-4, 6-3, but you can get your chances against that team. Especially again, I don't know how they didn't pick up any one of the multiple like rentals that were on the market. That I think that's mind-boggling.
And amazingly to me, again, you can shoot from the outside because the goaltending is such a problem that if you don't get to the grade A ice, it isn't the end of the world. You can still get goals from other places. But I do want to focus a little bit more on the Hall, Krejci, Smith line because this line is really buzzing. In 4 games together, you got 4 goals, 4 at 5-on-5, only 1 against. Generating way more offense, way better in the offensive zone. Krejci looks completely revitalized in every aspect, like power play. That he had that goal Sunday where he just waited. I mean, it was just perfect. Like that's just such typical, David Krejci that we've gotten used to. But it just goes to show you that like you just had to do this a few years ago. Imagine if David Krejci played with a winger or 2 competent wingers like a few years ago, not on the last year of his contract. I'm so curious to hear what you think about this because do you think this is that Taylor Hall move, the move to solidify that line? Now you have a legit scoring top 6. Is that enough to get you out of the East, out of the Final Four? Because again, we don't know if that's going to be who you're going to be playing in the Final Four, but is that enough to get you to the Cup?
I mean, if they're playing like that, if they're playing like they've done over the last week, then that's going above and beyond what you're expecting out of a second line, right? Because if the Bergeron line is doing its thing, and again, that's even with Pastrnak still not really getting his scoring touch back yet, right? We're still not at the point yet where Pastrnak gets into that groove where it seems like he's over in the left circle. You've got a 80% chance that puck's going in the net, right? We're not at that point yet with him in his games. That first line could be even better, but if the second line's giving you these kind of shifts, and I say shifts not just in terms of just the overall production, but you just see the way they play. It's like night and day from some of those other lines you've had. I mean, even when it was, Richie there and, insert right winger here, before, you had a typical shift, right, with David Krejci. We all know, I think at this point, how David Krejci likes to play, likes to hold on to the puck, likes to slow things down. Problem is like, you'd have Richie down low. You'd either connect on a pass and it would go wide and the puck would get out of the zone, reset. Now you're seeing a lot of, Krejci hold on to the puck, generating good looks. Guys are getting into good spots, but also they're recovering pucks. Craig Smith, who I think has been just as key as Taylor Hall on that line, has been great along the boards, recovering pucks. I think Taylor Hall, what's kind of stood out to me about his game is just his speed. And obviously you notice it in transition, right? Of he's getting these really clear, clean zone entries, but he's also using his speed to beat out guys to lose pucks. There's been quite a few times where, a puck is kind of, making its way out to the blue line, opposing teams getting close to corralling it. And all of a sudden he just comes in, swoops it in, feeds it back down low or holds it up at the blue line, lets guys get reset. It's not something that sometimes leads to, points on the scoreboard, but those are the things that tires out the opposition, that opens up more chances. And I think you're seeing that with that line. So if that second line gives you that scoring, that ability to tilt the ice in your favor, to drain the other team, to exploit those matchups, I don't see how you can view that second line as not doing enough to help you get to where you need to be, because they're going above and beyond that right now.
Oh yeah, no. And that's the thing again, like, you're getting that consistent production from them. And it feeds into this bigger thing. And you have Mike Reilly on D right now, who's playing really well, aside from the goal that they dangled McAvoy on Sunday. Mike Reilly's looked great. I mean, Mike Reilly has been everything and more that they've wanted. He has 2 points in 4 games, but even more so. I mean, getting shots through, doing things that, again, we were not used to seeing out of left shot defenseman this year from the Bruins, not named Matt Grzelcyk, but just, really good play from him. Good job on the top power play unit too. He's fit in really nicely to start. I know the numbers aren't amazing right now, but again, he's doing his job at the top of the key. So, you have all these pieces coming together. And one of the things I was worried about with this team just a few weeks ago was the goaltending. Tuukka Rask is injured. You got, Jaro Halak. We know what you're going to get out of him. We know that he's had the COVID issues. Plus, you saw the last year's playoff run. Like you know what you're going to get out of Halak, and it's a good product, but he's not carrying you to a cup. And I think people who think that, were kind of proven wrong last year. And then you had the young guys come in and it was like, oh, Jesus, what happens now? But Jeremy Swayman looks really damn good. And I know, the stuff's happening in Philly with Carter Hart. You don't want to jump too early on these young goalies, especially young goalies. You don't want to just like thrust them into the starting job. And I think Swayman's cool, calm and collected enough to not freak out at the idea of the starting job. Like he's very chill, as we've seen. Like he's very unlike any other goalie in that he's just a normal dude who just loves hockey, loves the fans, loves getting into it. But I do think that when Halak returns, Swayman has a legit case to be the backup. Now, maybe they want him to continue developing in Providence or in Marlborough, but I do think that Swayman has a legit case for or to be the backup. Do you think that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I could see it playing out. I think it's always important to take kind of the pragmatic approach when it comes to the goaltending situation this year, especially. I think that's a conversation for another day that I'm sure we're going to have once Rask and Halak hit UFA status, and I'm sure that we'll be discussing that.
That's why I want to save that. I don't want to get too deep into this.
But yeah, just looking at just the backup situation, especially, and I could see a case where obviously I think you need to get Halak back in. You have to get him in some games. Potentially, maybe you get him back against one of these games against Buffalo, who granted are playing better, but still it's Buffalo. It's a better to ease him in there than against a team like, the Penguins or the Capitals or something like that. But I could also very well see a situation where, Swayman still gets a start or two, whether it's, back-to-back or something. It's tough to tell a guy who's playing that well to, just send him back down to Providence or Marlborough, as you said. But I think it's all going to depend on the results too. Let's say Halak comes back, and I think it's to be expected. A guy coming off of the COVID list and not playing for a while, if he has a so-so game, it's to be expected, right? If he has 2-3 starts and still he's got like an 880 save percentage or something like that, then maybe you take a longer look at it, whether for this moment right now going into the playoffs, whether if a guy like Swayman is the backup, who, again, in an ideal situation, you don't have to even worry about who's going to be the backup because it's going to be Tuukka Rask, right? That's the number one issue. But I could see a situation
Rask
where
is the starter for those who. Rask is the starter.
Tuukka Rask is the starter. Yes, unless he is hurt, he's going to be the number one goalie in the playoffs. Yes. But if you go down the stretch and Halak is still really laboring or struggling, then I think maybe you reassess. But I'm sure there's going to be a ton of people who are going to be very mad when Halak makes his next start and it's not Swayman, especially if it's a game where they lose, which again could happen. You have to expect that for a guy coming off the list.
Teams do lose sometimes.
Yes, teams do lose. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of very angry people about it, but I look at just his overall goalie situation, both this year and looking ahead, and not to even delve too deep into it. But you kind of talk about Carter Hart, who got put into this tough situation, and now he's struggling, and the team is tanking. The Bruins are in a spot that teams that are on kind of the crossroads of goaltending are envious of, right? You've got Tuukka Rask, who's still the veteran, the number one guy that will probably be back next year. We'll see. But he's a guy, he's still not, a guy like Petraglia, one of these guys who's at the end of their career and is, don't really know if they're still a number one anymore. So Rask is a guy that you can still be here for 2-3 years and still be a legitimate number one. And you have a young goalie in the system that you can develop on your own timeline without rushing him, without, raising the expectations of handing him the job right away. So they're in a better spot than a whole bunch of teams in terms of their goaltending situation now. So if it's a case where Rask and Halak are back and they're playing well, and you have Swayman back down in Marlboro, that's good for all parties involved. And if Swayman keeps on playing like this and he supplants Halak, that's good for the Bruins as well. That means you've got a damn good prospect who you expect was going to be good, but now, you have to stop putting him in that category as like, the Spencer Knights or the Askarovs or one of those guys. Like, he's right up there now at this point. You look at just how he's playing. So
I don't think they expected Swayman to have this kind of year. Even I don't think they expected Swayman to come in this way and do what he's doing. I don't think that this was like in the cards for this year at all. I think maybe next year, but not this year. But it's kind of like, again, this was years ago. But Rask, Rask came in 08-09. I think he had one start that year, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it was a shutout against the Leafs, if I remember correctly. But 09-10. They had him as the backup. They did not expect him to, I don't think, become the starter. He did become the starter pretty much.
That's great.
And then he wasn't the starter for 10-11 or 11-12. And then he became the starter in 12-13. So the goalie timelines are different everywhere. Like, Swayman will still be getting games at the AHL level if he goes down. And, if he's up at the NHL level, he'll be getting games there. So with these goalies, a lot of times it's just, are you getting games? Are you getting pucks on you? Are you constantly, playing games? Once, twice a week. If it's a yes, then you should be fine. But goalie development is not my forte, so to speak. I'm not goalie Bob. We're not goalie Bob.
As Bruce Cassidy usually says, when people ask him about goalies, he immediately deflects to goalie Bob.
Yes,
goalie Bob but then gives his answer too, which is always the best spot.
Yeah, see, Carvel at UMass just doesn't get a goalie answer. He just says, talk to D Mike, who's the goalie assistant or assistant coach, who was a former goalie at RIT. But he never actually answers the question. Just ask him, because that's just not his area of expertise. But Cassidy at least gives the answer. But yes, so for the first time in a while, we can leave a Bruins beat being like, damn, Bruins are on the up and up. They're on the come up.
They're about to get swept by Buffalo now.
I was going to say, they're going to lose 3 straight to Buffalo. The Rangers are going to pass them because right now they have 3 straight against Buffalo, which everyone's saying, these are better Sabres. These are not throwaway easy games. This is not going to be easy. And the Rangers are only still 4 points behind. Again, the Flyers are completely out of it pretty much. So now it's really the Rangers, and that looks like a good team. That Rangers team has been pretty damn good lately. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the next week plays out, if they can continue to play like this and keep that consistency. And as you said, play more to their ceiling. Third line comes around. Fourth line starts to score a few goals here and there. The power play comes back. Guys on D come back. And I mean, all signs point to that happening. So we'll see what ends up happening. Before I let you go, Connor, is there anything that you would like to plug?
Yeah, we're going to be breaking down. We have a story coming out today looking at some underlying stats of things that really stood out to me about how the Bruins have been faring during this late season turnaround, I guess you can call it now, post deadline. So we have that running. Obviously have a whole bunch of stuff from this series against the Sabres, and maybe start doing a little bit of projections down the road as to what to expect maybe once we get to the playoffs, which is right around the corner. It's less than a month now, I think, even though we don't know when exactly it's going to start with the way the North Division's looking. So maybe in a month, probably less than a month, hopefully, but it's getting close, Evan. We're getting really close to playoff hockey once again. So it's an exciting time, to say the least. So all that stuff will be over at bostonsportsjournal.com. So subscribe to BSJ, please. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do it at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. For CLNS Media, I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have an amazing rest of your week.